AP Art students. Today we are going to talk about your second assignment for your drawing course. So if you are enrolled in AP Drawing this semester, this is the video for you. Your project today is called Ordinary Behavior, and you're going to work on this project all week. Now remember, this is the last project before you begin working on your concentration. For this project, you will celebrate everyday life in a painting or drawing of your choice. So let's begin by going back a little bit and discussing what is the purpose of art. The purpose of art is that it actually is very important. It records our history and our current culture and society. It has always been important in sociology or the study of human history. Through art, we have learned about past cultures, traditions. By looking at things like drawings, prints, and sculptures, we can gather information about past cultures and peoples. Through cave paintings, for example, we discovered how prehistoric men and women hunted, what animals they ate, and a few things about their traditions as well. Before books were widespread and reading was common, artwork was used to educate people. Think about when you visit beautiful cathedrals or Catholic churches, and there's stained glass windows and sculptures and art everywhere. That was because those were seen as educational tools instead of just decoration. So I want you to think about the statements I'm about to share with you. While I'm sharing these statements with you, I want you to be thinking about which one of the statements resonates with you personally. And after you have watched this presentation, make sure that you go back into Schoology and that you participate in the discussion on this topic. So, according to Artwork Archives, artists are a vehicle for expressing universal emotion. Artists are also responsible for unearthing the truth, just like journalists. Artists work to illuminate the margins of society and make changes for the good. Artists tell stories and pass on traditions. Artists connect with and inspire people all over the globe. Artists record and preserve human history, just like historians. Artists offer messages of hope. Artists are ambassadors of the natural world. Artists also help create a sense of community. So now that I've shared all these statements with you, think about this again and pause the video if you need to. Which of these statements resonates with you personally? Do you feel like you like to express emotion in your artwork? Do you like to search for truth? Do you like to help people that are considered other? Do you care a lot about tradition or stories? Do you like to connect with people? Do you like to preserve history? Do you think that we need more hope? Do you think that nature is very important? Do you think that community is very important? Think about those statements and then go to Schoology and talk about that with each other. All right, so a couple other things I want you to think about before we get into talking about our project and the artists for this week. What role do you think that art plays in society today? In 500 years, when our current society is being studied, what artwork do you think people will look at? What will it say about our culture? Think about social media. With the wide range of styles, mediums, and subject matters, will it be more difficult to study our society than it has been in the past? What about the role of social media in capturing even the most mundane parts of our everyday lives? Although our ordinary behaviors may seem unimportant to us, they are pieces of our culture and part of who we are. Let's get into talking about our assignment. So, for your assignment, I want you to create a work of art that celebrates an ordinary moment in your life. Before you choose a moment, consider what this choice says about you as a person. Consider creating an interesting juxtaposition with the materials that you choose and the subject that you choose to portray. By putting the spotlight on an everyday occurrence and turning it into a work of art, it is going to help elevate and celebrate this part of your life. For this project, you get to choose the material that you want to work with. But if you are unsure about what to use, try creating a painting and combine some kind of traditional material like acrylic paint with some kind of new or unusual material like eggshells. I have some questions to help kind of spark some thoughts in you while you're thinking about, okay, so what mundane thing from my life should I actually do? Do you have a morning ritual? Do you always eat the same thing every day on the way to school? You're VIP right now, so maybe you have a different morning ritual now that you're at home. I know I like to stop at the gas station every day and get a Monster energy drink. I know y'all have seen me drink those. What is your favorite condiment? What do you do every day when you get home from school or from work? What do you do with your friends? What does the inside of your car or your family's car look like? What is your favorite weekend activity? So, these are the sort of things that are mundane and everyday to us, but are actually going to be very exciting to historians as they look back on our culture. Now, I have some examples of student artwork that can help spark some ideas. And that's a bag of chips. It's kind of hard to tell. That's obviously a photograph. Photography works as well. All right, so hopefully these student examples showed you the wide range of materials and subject matter that you can choose for this project. So even though I am giving you an assignment, I really want you to be thinking about your role as an AP Art student and how you can bring your own voice to this assignment. Choose the media that works for you, choose the subject matter that works for you. Now, part of what you're going to have to do for this project is you're going to have to look at a few artists, and I'm going to give you the artists that I want you to look at so that when we start our concentration, you're kind of already in the habit of looking at historical and contemporary artists. So I'm going to ask you about that from time to time throughout the semester. We're also going to take some time this week to work on a guiding question for this project. And that's why I started by giving you so many questions for this project, just getting you in the habit of doing inquiry and just thinking and letting that guide the artwork that you choose to make. So, the historical artist that I want you to know about is Henry Mosler. He was born in 1841 and he lived until 1920. He was a professional painter, wood engraver, and illustrator. He studied and documented American life. He focused on the American Civil War. So, this is someone who worked in the South and portrayed the South, which is always encouraging. And he would focus on everyday life and he would focus on both men and women. He was born in Poland. He grew up in Cincinnati, but he actually ended up moving later on in his life. And he was an art correspondent for Harper's Weekly, which is really interesting to me. And there's a picture of him when he's much younger working on a painting. When he returned to Cincinnati after the Civil War, he began to get a lot of recognition as a painter. So he started as that correspondent, and then he actually became a pretty well known painter. And he traveled to France, and then he ended up going to New York eventually. And he was an extremely successful painter, and he had a lot of recognition throughout the rest of his career. So he ended up getting several awards, and like many famous artists at that time, he went where the money was and where the recognition was going to be found. I'm going to show you a series of his paintings, but for your research, you're going to actually look up him yourself. So I'm going to go through these quickly. I'm not going to talk about them. I just want you to get an idea of the type of artwork that he did. So his are a lot of scenes, very idyllic kind of scenes, a lot of Southern life and culture. And I feel like I'm getting a history lesson just by looking at his artwork, but this was something that was contemporary at the time. So he did a great job of really capturing his culture in each one of these images. All right. So you're going to do a little bit of research on him on your own, and you're going to answer some questions about that in the packet. Then I want you to research two other artists, and I'm giving you the names of those artists as well. So the second artist that I want you to research is Ralph Goins, and he was born in 1928, and he lived until 2016. So he passed away rather recently. And he's also an American painter, and he's known for highly detailed paintings of still lifes, also things like trucks, banks, and other kind of mundane objects. And they are portrayed in a very objective and non emotional manner. So, very different than the artist we just saw, in that the artist we just saw, all of his paintings kind of feel like, well, they're feel good and they're kind of sappy and idyllic. And then you get into Ralph Goings, who is just very objective, like, here's what this object looks like. And so I'll show you a couple examples of his work, that photorealism. And he actually grew up during the Great Depression, which might have some kind of bearing on why he was so realistic and objective in his art making. He was greatly influenced by the great Rembrandt, and he studied art at the California College of Arts and Crafts. And so he actually did that shortly after the arts and crafts movement began. And so that's really interesting to me. And that might also have had an influence on him and why he celebrated the mundane in his artwork. This is another one of his paintings. And so this one is more of a scene, but it's not as idyllic as the scene before. This is kind of just like realistic. It looks like a snapshot if I were to walk in a diner. And a lot of his work are either kind of like still lifes of food, a lot of stuff that you would see in a diner, or scenes kind of like the one that I chose. And he was inspired to go into photorealism after being exposed to pop art and feeling that if an artist wanted to represent an object, they should try to reflect it as closely as possible. He helped to define the photorealist movement along with several other artists. So if you are into photorealism, I would look at the little list I have for you right there. Several greats like Audrey Flack, and you can, kind of explore some other artists that are in this same movement. And if you are interested in checking out his work in more detail and you are having a hard time finding pictures, I actually have a link to his work on this show or slideshow. And the second contemporary artist, or the third artist overall, that I want you to study is William Ray. And I really like this artist quite a bit. So I definitely want you to spend some time researching him, and I hope that you are as inspired by his artworks as I am. He is actually alive today. He was born in 1956, and he has lived in California for most of his life. He studied painting at the Art Students League in New York. So he studied in New York, lives in California, lucky. And for his background, he actually makes his living as a cartoonist, but has found his voice in contemporized reflection of traditional California regional painting that focus on humble subject matter, rarely considered as fine art. So basically, he likes to mix high or fine art with the kind of low experience that he feels like he's having living in California. So kind of like the painting right there on the slide of just kind of like a normal city scene. I feel like I could drive down any street in Memphis and see that exact same scene. And then, the only thing significant about the painting is kind of like the movement of this man who looks kind of dejected. And so then I start asking myself questions like, why does he look like that? And what happened, and like what kind of depressing existence are we living in cities now where we feel so isolated because there's so much negative space around him. So, he's able to bring so much to just a very simple, objective, but also very stylized painting. So I really enjoy this artist quite a bit. And I didn't include any of it in the slideshow because it didn't exactly go with the project, but his superhero series is fantastic. All right. So he is known for combining aspects of realism with abstract expressionism. So abstract expressionism is that movement. I really talk about it a lot more in ceramics than I do in art 1 and 2, but abstract expressionism was like just a very visceral art movement where people are all about expressing their feelings by kind of flinging um, art mediums at whatever. So think about artists like Jackson Pollock, or if you took ceramics, Peter Volkos, and those are abstract expressionist artists. So they're all about just showing like really raw emotion in their artwork. So William Ray is all about like combining that, which usually looks like nothing, with realism. And I think he does a beautiful job of marrying the two styles together. His pieces have a sense of movement, like the piece we just saw, or other times they have a sense of it being a snapshot of a moment. So almost like a photograph that's just a snapshot that's then been kind of elevated to art through the way that he's painted it and portrayed it. His subject matter includes mundane, everyday occurrences, such as shopping at the mall or eating at McDonald's. And if you have a hard time finding his artwork, I have a link to his work on this slideshow as well. So let's go back and kind of refocus back on your assignment. So you're going to get a packet, and in the packet, you are going to research the different artists. It's going to walk you through that. And then I'm also going to ask you to do some work in your sketchbook and then to brainstorm and plan out your projects. All of these steps are extremely important for AP. So please make sure that you are doing each one of these steps while you're preparing to make the artwork. This assignment is really to prepare you for creating your own AP portfolio. And so after the first concentration assignment, you're really gonna, suffer if you have not worked through these first couple packets, because you're not going to be getting as much teacher support at that point. It's really going to depend on you. So you really need to get this practice underway so that you are used to carrying out the process of making artwork the way that AP wants you to. So let me get back to your assignment. When you're thinking about your idea, I want you to focus on the mundane or the everyday occurrences in your life. Think about your routines, your family's traditions, or things that you see and do every day. You can do something like an object study, you can do a still life, you can do an architecture study, or you can do something figurative if it's something that you see or experience every day. Just make sure that you focus on something that is typically viewed as boring or normal and elevate that through the way that you draw or paint your subject. The fact that you are choosing to turn whatever you choose into a work of art helps elevate the importance of it. So don't worry about, oh, is this actually important? As soon as you start painting it and drawing it and spending all that time on it, that is what's going to elevate it to fine art. So a little bit of help just in case you're struggling. The material that you work with is up to you. I recommend doing a painting just to kind of push yourself a little bit. Even some of you like to work with markers. We'll use paint markers for this. And so if you use some kind of traditional medium such as oil paint, that will push the contemporary and traditional juxtaposition, or like the mashing up of two very different things, or contrast. So think about like William Ray. We just looked at how his pieces feel very modern, but they're done with their traditional art material. I would recommend using acrylic paint over using oil paint, even though oil paint is beautiful. It does not dry very quickly, and AP art moves very fast. So I would work with a fast medium like watercolor, gouache, paint pens, acrylic paint, anything like that that's going to dry quickly, ink. Um, if you do photographs, because I know a couple of you have mentioned an interest in photography, then what I want you to do instead of a painting is I want you to do several photo shoots, and I want you to take lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of pictures, and don't just do one photo shoot. I want to see that you've taken pictures at different times of the day. I want you to have worked with different objects, so not the same object in the same place. If you're working with a person, maybe consider taking that person different places or doing several different people. And so you're going to take a lot of different images. And then I want you to narrow down those different images down to 10. And then you're going to send me those 10 images instead of one final piece. Once you send me those 10 images, if I feel like it looks like you took them all at the same time, then I'm going to ask to see all the photos from your photo shoot. So do not delete them until after you've seen the grade for this project. Then you're going to, on your own, before you get feedback from me, narrow down the 10 pictures that you chose down to your 3 best or your 3 top choices. And then I want you to edit in either an app or on your computer those 3 photographs. Once you've edited those 3 photographs, you're going to turn those in as well. So you have 10 shots, just raw shots, the way they were taken. And then I want you to turn in 3 of those 10 again as edited photos. Then after you've turned that in, I want you to tell me which one of those 3 is your top choice. And that will be the piece that we look at during critique. We will have a critique after this project, and you will get more details on that later. And like I mentioned earlier in this video, I will be talking about guiding questions. That is in your packet, but just hang tight on that until I go over it. And do make sure that you turn in all the paperwork from the last project, so the packet of research. That's very important for me to see what you're working on, and so that I can know that you're understanding and comprehending what is necessary for AP Art. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.